He's still in that, man?
Yeah, man. We just I just picked at the turn 10-12, 11-1. I can't tell if I love this draft or hate this draft. I think I kind of go back and forth. It's crazy because I think if I were to post this draft, people would say, "Oh, that's boring," or "That looks terrible."
Yeah.
But I honestly feel like it's a high risk, high upside draft. Where everybody else is going 0 RB or hero RB. I went robust RB. I almost channeled my inner Jeff Z, but had to kind of pull back a little bit just because I didn't.
Shout out Jeff Z.
No, and really, I mean, I can now see the advantage of that with the right running backs, and that was the thing. I wasn't going to force a strategy if the right running backs were there. So, I think last time we talked, I let y'all know that I took C-Mac number 1, came back and took Kamara, and then Fournette at the 3-1. Obviously, still feel pretty good about that. And so when it came back to me in the 4th and 5th round, I kind of had a decision to make. There was a huge wide receiver run, and the last thing that I did not want to do was take a wide receiver.
Reach on one, yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, you know what? David Montgomery's here.
Letting the value fall to you, like I was telling y'all weeks ago.
Yeah.
Just value drafting almost.
And I don't want to call it a cop out because I didn't take these players because I felt like, okay, let me just take the value. I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, I just let the value come to me, which is a good thing. But then you also don't want to just take a player because just because
almost
he's a value.
Forced, yeah.
Because then you just fall into a trap.
Right.
But I did a deep dive and I felt very, very good about David Montgomery. I mean, he's like a boring type of back, but I like.
So you went four running backs straight.
I went 4 running backs straight, robust RB.
And then 5th round.
And then 5th round was a decision between Allen and Cooks.
Josh Allen
and Brandon Cooks, and then Bateman. I ended up going
Bateman.
Yeah, I ended up going Brandon Cooks. I ended up going Brandon Cooks. I
Yeah,
didn't like any other running backs there, so that was like the end of my tier.
But if you value drafting, then Josh Allen in the 5th round, that's value.
Well, he said he's
That
not
is
really
true.
truly value draft. It's just that he was collecting value.
Yeah. It's kind of an amorphous type draft. Some of it's value-based drafting. Some of it's just
being fluid, man. Be like water. Be like water.
And I didn't take Josh Allen because not to kind of get into the whole draft, but I ended up taking Kyler Murray later. So I felt like the drop off between that versus
that's fair.
Who my wide receiver was going to be,
Okay.
Yeah.
Less
We didn't hear a tight end.
Ooh, okay. So I basically punted tight end. So in drafts like this where I'm going heavy at other positions.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to take one later?
I did take one.
Oh, you already took one?
Yeah.
Who you took?
I reached on him.
Okay.
So I feel like when you're going to reach, you reach on those positions where you punted, which sounds
So who'd you go with?
Evan Ingram.
Lord, what round are you in?
The Dan Arnold tour has officially ended.
Well, you know why I can do that? Because nobody's going to draft Dan Arnold.
That's true.
Nobody's going to draft Dan Arnold.
Yeah, you can come back and get it later.
If Dan Arnold comes out and scores more points than Evan Ingram that first week, no one's going to think much about it. They're going to give him a mulligan.
And you'll be right there.
And I'll be right there to pick him up for $1.
There you go.
But really, I took him ahead of a lot of guys that he normally goes ahead of. But in my mind, when I'm drafting that late, I don't care about the Gesicki's of the world or that Albert O's of the world. I want the guy who can potentially lead his team in targets or be second in targets, at the very least third in targets.
Gotcha.
And if I don't feel like you can strongly do that, then, there's not a lot of value. Otherwise, I'll just wait to the 15th, 16th round.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Let's get the show started.
All right, let's do it.
I just bought a new whip. Spend a couple thousand just to cruise it. Shawty said she love me, but I swear she'll never prove it. I never tell her, but I put it in the music. Well, that's okay. All I wanna do is make the best of my whole day. Thank the Lord up above. Get the cream on the side. Make you laugh to knowing that's the stuff that I love.
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with 2-time FFPC champion AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine.
Yes, sir.
Guys, camp started this week. So much news dropping. Burrow, the appendectomy. I mean, is that relevant or irrelevant? How do you guys see that, him having to have surgery, when camp is about to start?
There's definitely been a lot of news. The Burrow news to me is not very important at all. I think it's largely irrelevant. People heal very well from appendectomies. Really, basically, once the incision's healed and they feel like he's comfortable to move around, which shouldn't be more than a few weeks, he'll be back. But at this stage, he's a vet, and he's very familiar with the offense. Not much has changed there, so I don't think he's missing much. That I'm not so worried about.
He didn't practice much last year either, huh?
Yeah.
Because he was coming back from that knee injury.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of other news though. A lot of other news where kind of had to sift through and try to figure out, where I'm falling on certain players now.
All right, so let's move to the Julio signs with the Bucs. How does that change how you guys see that receiver room? Do you still feel the same about Russell Gage?
I think it has to hurt Russell Gage a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Just another body there to take some of the targets. First of all, just specifically talking about Julio, I don't think there's much left in the tank for Julio. I think we talked about it last year and last season. Yeah. Julio is a shell of himself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think injuries have zapped him. Now, when he's healthy, I think last year he did have a couple games where he impressed a little bit. So it's still something in there. The problem is you just can't depend on him. Yeah. Last week, what did he play? Like 5 games? And then the games he did play, he was kind of in and out of the game. Mm-hmm. He didn't really have the major target share. It really was just him and A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown was missing a lot of games too. So it's like he wasn't able to kind of fulfill that number 1 wide receiver role or mantle for the team anymore. And then going to the Bucs, he's not going to be the number 1 target guy. He's going to be just another mouth to feed. Talent's obviously still there. He's still a big guy. I'm pretty sure he's still fast. His hands didn't break, so he can catch the ball. So it's almost like it's just another like a nuisance for the other options.
Yeah, it's a headache.
Yeah, it's a headache. It's like somebody else coming and
so y'all don't
just
see this
everything up.
affecting like Mike Evans' targets, like being another big body receiver.
I think, when you're talking about the situation, I think we got to talk about it as a whole. Because, along with the Julio news also came the news that Chris Godwin wasn't going on PUP.
Right.
Now,
I'm not sure I believe that, but
exactly, and that's kind of how I feel. I feel like number one, like I don't care if he's not on PUP. I don't care if he's starting week 1. Like unless he's like at a significant value, like, and I have material.
I'll just lose out on a player.
Exactly. I'm just like fine missing out. I'm fine missing out. I don't want to deal with someone who had surgery like this year in the same calendar year. Yeah. So, but. He's still, if he comes back, he's still seeing snaps on the field. Mm-hmm. So then you have him. Now you also have Russell Gage, obviously. Yeah. And you have Julio. Even if Julio is a shell of himself is still pretty good given what his former self was. Mm-hmm. And I do see him kind of as more of like a role player, limited snaps, and I think that's kind of already
he's still going to command some kind of target.
Exactly.
If he's on the field, Brady's just not going to say, I'm never going to throw
And if
Julio
he's commanding
the ball,
targets in the red zone, like I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter about like, if you think, if you're concerned about Julio and you think, and that's affecting your Mike Evans, then you don't deserve Mike Evans. I think that's literally what the tweet said. and I kind of understand that to some point, but to another point, I think, when news comes out like this, I feel like people get so polarized and so, not necessarily divided, but, they take, both extreme ends of the argument. Mm-hmm. Like, he can still have some effect, It's not that he has to have 0 effect or has 100% effect. Like, all of and it's the same with all these news. Like, sometimes the news is just like grain of salt. Sometimes it's like a big nugget,
It's kind of nuanced a little bit.
Exactly. And so I feel like, I think, we were seeing Mike Evans like drafted at the higher end of the 2nd round. That's because people thought Godwin wasn't going to be healthy.
Right.
Was probably going to miss.
It was really more with Gronk. I think it was the Gronk news
that was like
shot up his ADP.
And that's what like pushed it over the edge. Yeah. So now you got Zach Rudolph, and Zach Rudolph is old, but Zach Rudolph can still catch passes. Yeah. And one thing that Zach Rudolph can do is catch touchdowns because he's a big target. And when you're that close near the goal line, you don't need to be athletic. You just need to be a big body and schemed open. So defenses are, focused in on Mike Evans or focused in on the back. Whoever's
you don't think this though helps Mike Evans a little bit?
No, I feel like the only person this helps is Leonard Fournette.
No, because before with no other options, kind of like what you just said, the defense is probably going to scheme to specifically try to stop, bracket, double team, whatever. Yeah. Mike Evans. Now you have Julio on the field with him, and then if Chris Godwin does coming back, the defense just can't ignore these guys. So these are still guys that deserve attention,
So I guess what I'm comparing it to is last year. And last year, Evans scored a lot of TDs. Mm-hmm. A lot of, even
and they had AB and Godwin.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when
and Gronk.
And so basically, to me, Gronk was injured for a large part of the season too.
He was.
But now you're replacing Julio with AB. To me, that's a significant drop.
Yeah, but Julio still has the name though.
He still has a name, but still defenses know and teams know.
Yeah.
That's why he got the contract he got. Yeah. So everyone knows. Everyone knows he's still not like this. He's still someone you got to consider, but you have a significant drop off between him and AB. Okay. And then, like, you know, obviously there's a drop off going from Gronk to Rudolph, but it may be just, but maybe it just like equals itself off.
Like,
I still don't believe in Rudolph. I don't
because
think
Brady even got say what?
I don't believe anything in Rudolph. So
he's a good blocker.
But going back to Gage, specifically speaking of fantasy, because this is really what it all boils down to as far as the show.
Yeah.
So before I was drafting Gage, like early in the draft season, and at that time I felt like I was getting him at pretty good value.
Yep.
He was going real late. People just kind of ignored the fact that he was at the time, you know, the looking like going to be the number 2 wide receiver for the Bucs, you know. So I was picking him up, you know, I would say 9th round, 8th round, you know, around there, maybe even 10th round. And then the news started coming out, and he started to get a little bit more buzz, and eventually started seeing him go as high as the 6th round, 7th round. I stopped drafting when he got that high. I think with this news, it's going to allow his ADP to slowly revert back to what it was before, which is a good thing because I still think he's going to have a substantial role with the team.
I agree. I think he's definitely someone. You know, the funny thing is, and I think we just like this is not even just a Russell Gage Bucs thing. This is like a whole offseason thing. People's ADPs are going to fluctuate, but like you always talk about, like you're not missing out because you drafted Gage, you know, in the 7th round or even the 6th round in some cases, and now he's going in the 10th round, and now you feel like, oh man, that team's dead. Because guess what? You may have drafted Michael Thomas on that same team in the 7th or 8th round, and his ADP is probably going to come up, whether or not it's warranted or not. So things are just like people are just kind of going up and down, up and down.
Everything just mixed around.
And then even somebody like an Alan Lazard, like who, you know, no one really wants to, like, we all understand that Alan Lazard is not this great talent. That's no one's like arguing that, but you can't argue that he's playing with one of the GOATs. You know, who can like get the ball into whatever crevice of the field he wants, and who can make basically any player he wants almost relevant.
We're going to talk about both of those guys. Well, let's talk about Michael Thomas because he's back on the field right now. Let's talk about this Saints offense. Listen, we still don't know what's going to happen to Alvin Kamara, but they're loaded with weapons in that receiver room. How do you guys feel about Michael Thomas being back on the field, and how do you guys feel about his ADP? Will it rise? Will it stay about the same? What do you guys think about Michael Thomas?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say loaded. I try to like, and this is tough because I really like the Saints offense this year. I do think it's going to be, one of the underrated offenses that's going to likely show out this year. You know, one of the underestimated offenses, and that's large in part due to the OC Carmichael, but then also I'm assuming Jameis Winston being healthy. I'm much more okay with a quarterback coming off an ACL than other skilled players. That being said, what I try to like avoid doing is saying, okay, like their wide receiver room is loaded, and you may feel that way, but for me, Michael Thomas, like I'm not trusting that. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I saw the stuff that he posted about fantasy docs and the Pinocchio nose and things like that. I mean, what did they lie about? They said don't draft him last year. He didn't play last year. Like, and then we're 2 years removed, and he started on PUP.
Right.
And we're and he's back to some degree, but what Michael Thomas is, and it may be the Michael Thomas of old and this and that. I'm highly skeptical. If it is that, then this Saints offense is even better than what I anticipated. But the reason I like it more so is because of the OC. I like that they brought in Jarvis. I think this is the perfect role for Jarvis, where he's not a true number one, but he can like be a nice possession receiver. He can work the intermediate routes. He can work these slant routes. He has someone like Michael Thomas who hopefully will command some respect. But then they bring in Chris Olave, who can be a nice deep threat, and you have a quarterback who can throw the deep ball. Okay. And we haven't seen their tight ends really focus, or really been, primary focus of the offense, but I think they do still have some decent options there. And then you have a running back or a couple of running backs who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And you have an elite defense. I really, really like this offense a lot. And that's even with my thoughts of Michael Thomas being, maybe 70%, I think at best, of what he was in the past. So that's my take.
I mean, I do think his ADP is going to go up just because news.
It has to.
It's like the rubber band effect. Everything just kind of makes things just kind of go to a quick extreme or a quick pop. But kind of like what Abby was saying, I don't really trust Michael Thomas. And I'm not so much saying he's not healthy because he might be healthy. It was an ankle. And honestly, the ankle should have been healed up by now. I don't really know what delayed everything so long. Complications, had some kind of setback.
He had a setback. Major setback.
But as far as Michael Thomas, it's been 2 years since we've seen him be that dominant wide receiver. Who's to say what type of Michael Thomas we're even getting? You know, when Michael Thomas was dominated, he was kind of their only option as far as the receiver game. Yep. And like you just mentioned, they have other guys. They have other guys that actually play in the same vicinity. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up my next point. But you have other guys that play in the same vicinity as where Michael Thomas usually gets his bread and butter, and then Jarvis Landry, somebody that's trustworthy. Yeah. So he's going to get that short intermediate that's going to take some target share away from Michael Thomas. Then you have Olave, who's a deep threat, a speedster, who might take some of the deep stuff away from Michael Thomas. And then it's like, okay, where is Michael Thomas really dominating? And then, like I said, the second point you just made.
Oh, sorry. And Harris, Deontay Harris.
Deontay Harris.
Not even talking
did they change the name to Hardy or something? And then you still got Callaway and Traquan.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, they didn't do much, but there's still just other options.
They're good fourth and fifth option wide receivers.
Right.
You know?
And then the point you just made is, he was doing all that with Breeze. Yeah. Who his arm wasn't really, capable. I mean, I don't know, but it seemed like he wasn't capable of really throwing the deep ball anymore. Yeah. So it was like, it was perfect for him to throw those short intermediate passes to Michael Thomas and then you dump off to Kamara.
And he can sharp cuts
now
on that
you got
angle.
Somebody like Winston who has the big arm and actually throw the ball downfield. We saw a little bit a few years ago or a couple years ago as far as the connection Winston had with MT, but it's been 2 years. Yeah. It wasn't a long connection. It was like a few games. And since then, Winston has had a lot more practice experience with these other guys. Yeah. So we don't really know what we're giving Michael Thomas. Where he's going right now, what, 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there?
Yeah. I think 7th. Oh, FFPC, I think it's
I think that's 7th. Okay range. Maybe bump him up to the 6th or maybe the 5th if you really believe. I wouldn't say the 5th, but maybe. Like, I wouldn't do it, but if somebody was just convicted on doing it, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but
depends on the bill.
I'm not sure what to see with him this year.
It depends. I think it depends on the bill for me, and honestly, I mean, it depends on like who you have confidence in. Yeah. Like, do you have confidence in the Michael Thomas? Or do you have
if you're taking Michael Thomas in the
Antonio
5th,
Gibson. Like, it's like.
But if you're taking Michael Thomas in the 5th, you're taking him as your starter.
Yeah.
So that's
the issue.
You believe in him. It's not even a thing where you're like you're trying to see what type of Michael Thomas is coming back. Like, you're literally saying. He didn't go on the PUP. I saw a few Twitter videos where he ran one route and then he talked some trash on Twitter. I'm putting him in my starting line on week 1. And I'm definitely not there yet.
And he's an older player. This is my issue with players.
How old is he? Like 28? He's not that old.
He's not that old, but he's older. Yeah. And he's never been like a speedster. He's really been like, obviously.
They call him Slam Boy.
Yeah. Hey, no slander on this pod. But like, you hurt, obviously, ankle is the issue. Like, that's going to have an effect on the route run. But the point that I was getting towards is, like, do you see, like, him kind of starting off slow and then, like, towards the, like, back end of the year, like, the money weeks, like really taking off, like, ramping up, like, getting better?
Maybe.
Or do you see him kind of plateauing? Or do you see, like, or do you get worried about, like, a setback? I get kind of worried about a setback. I get worried about this knee inflaming. I get worried about the idea of somebody coming back from that first year. So that's why I'm personally off it. As opposed to, like, if maybe he was a younger player. Like, say it was Jameson Williams, and, let's say his ACL happened, maybe 3 or 4 months earlier. And knowing that he's going to start the maybe season on the pup or just, like, be limited the first few weeks, I'm much more likely to take a shot on that type of player who's very young. ACL, I know it. Recovery went well, and I know that the trajectory is towards improvement as we get further along from that. From
and you typically see that from rookies anyway. Yeah. So, like, you would think, if anything, Chris Olave, as the season goes on, starts to take an even bigger share of that target pie.
Exactly. So exactly. And that's
kind
of what I
get worried about.
That would be the biggest
concern down the line. So,
All right, let's talk about John Mechie the third. Listen, our Texans take a hit. He's going to be out indefinitely. Let's talk about the Texans for a bit. Are there any other weapons to be had? I know that Brandon Cooks is being drafted relatively high considering what the Texans are projected to be this season and what they were last season. Are there any other weapons to kind of focus on this Texans offense?
Passing weapons or just weapons?
Just weapons in general.
I mean, we talked about Marlon Mack. I still think Marlon Mack is being undervalued.
Me too.
I mean, he's a guy that
y'all can have him.
From everything we're seeing, he's their starting running back. It's not waiver. It's not even a running back battle. He's in camp. Yeah. He's starting the camp as the guy. They have high hopes for him. He's 2 years removed from his Achilles injury. He played last year. He didn't play a lot, but he played. And he's being taken in the double-digit rounds. Somebody could possibly be a starter
running back.
And give you, like, starter fantasy type points week 1. I definitely still think he's undervalued. But besides him, Nico Collins, let's not forget about him.
Yep, second year.
And it's really simple, the fact that they don't have many other guys, highly touted guys. The other receivers they have are has-beens or people that are undrafted.
Dorsett got hurt last year. And apparently they
like Dorsett.
Yeah, they like Dorsett.
No, they like Dorsett.
Chris Conley is still there too, right?
Yeah, Chris Conley couldn't catch a cold. Dorsett, like, if he can stay healthy, and that's always been Dorsett's
No, Dorsett's
issue.
another option,
Don't sleep on Dorsett.
But he's not going to be the number 2, I don't think.
No, he wouldn't be the number 2.
I think the number 2 is going to be Nico.
Yeah, but he would be like the number 3 option, I think.
They also still have Chris Moore, who they like.
Yeah.
Chris Moore looked pretty good. Like Chris Moore, because he wore the same number as Will Fuller. Last year I was watching games like, wow, that looks like Will Fuller out there. You know, so and he had that rapport with Davis Mills. They have some other guys trying to make the team. Yeah. We'll see what happens, but if you're really looking for just another option, like say you were playing a best ball and you were trying to stack the Texans and you had Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks, another option is Nico and like he said, Philip Dorsett. I do think with them losing Mechie, and if people can recall last year, the way the season ended, if you saw anything with the Texans, Danny Amendola kind of went hard. I think he was the number 1 wide receiver the last week of the season. So it lets you know that slot wide receiver position for the Texans has value. Again, Mechie is gone. Amendola just retired. If you do kind of get a beat as far as who is going to man that slot position, whether they bring somebody in, like a Cole Beasley or something like that, or if you just get, beat reporters saying this guy has been a slot guy, I feel like there's some sneaky value in that position.
Yeah.
So
prayers up to John Mechie.
Definitely
a tough situation. So obviously, I think not just Texans fans, but everybody out there, we rooting for you.
Yeah.
I know. I noticed that you didn't mention my boy Pierce.
That was on purpose.
I know. No, but
I ain't going to tight ends either. You going to tight ends too.
I feel like Pierce is somebody like, I think, he's going, in the 10th, 11th round, which I agree is like.
He's going before Marlon Mack.
He's going before Marlon Mack.
I think he should go before Marlon Mack.
I think Pierce is going like 8th.
8th what?
I think he's going like 8th round.
He's not going in 8th round.
Well, I may be lying. I may have just totally made that up.
He's not going to
if Pierce is going in the 10th, that means Mack is going like in the 13th, 14th.
I just drafted him in like the 13th round.
My issue with Mack is like, again, like, okay, he's going to start the season. Do you think he finishes the season as a starter? And 2, like, what type of role outside of like, first and second down? Because that first and second down role for the Texans is probably not one you really want to cover.
Okay, I'll say this on that initial point you made as far as whether he's going to finish the season as a starter. He might not, but in reality, man, the whole landscape of running backs changes so much near the end of the season. Yeah. If you really look back at last year, the starting or the top running back weeks were from guys that probably weren't even drafted last year. So you might be concerned as far as him not holding down the fort the whole season. But like I said, if he can just at least get you started.
But this is the thing I like about Pierce is I feel like he can kind of do it all. So I feel like he's someone that they could potentially transition to as they're looking. Yeah. So the thing you could do is like just not draft him, or definitely don't like draft him high. But because he may be just a guy like somebody may like draft and then they may see Marlon Mack and then drop him.
Here's what I think will probably happen. If we start getting camp reports that Marlon Mack is running with the ones, solely Marlon Mack, what's going to happen? His ADP is going to drop. And at that point, if you have any kind of belief in Pierce, that's when you should jump on him. Yeah. Because I think people are probably thinking, because if people are drafting Pierce so much higher right now than Mack, they think starting day 1, Pierce is probably going to have that job.
No, and that's not the case.
Back into the 9th is what I just saw. Back into the 9th, Pierce, early 10th. Yeah.
Pierce? Okay. Mm-hmm. That ADP is going to drop, especially if they hear, God forbid, Pierce is running with the 3s.
Yeah. And he was available in my main, and it literally was not even a consideration because Henderson was on the board, Kenny Gainwell was on the board, Khalil Herbert was on. There was like a lot of other running backs that were on the board available. So he wasn't. I think he's going a little bit higher than he should.
And not to belabor the Texans talk, because I know people don't want to hear this, but I know people love Brevin Jordan, but I'm telling y'all, Pharaoh Brown, he's going to be the starter. He's gonna when the first team comes out there to line up, you're gonna see number 85 right out there with them.
Yeah.
So do with that information. Do with that information as you want. You know, so
Drop it there.
Sure, yeah.
I'm gonna just leave this right here.
This episode is sponsored by Fulltime Fantasy World Championships, fulltimefantasy.com. Guys, please check the links below. Right now, we're drafting in the Fulltime Fantasy World Championship draft. Feel free to click that link, join the draft. They have tons of tournaments to get into. Get off those ESPN drafts. Get into a real men's league. Full-Time Fantasy World Championship. Follow the link below. Trust me, you won't be sorry. All right, guys, so early camp reports state that Christian Watson is going to miss some time. That means that Allen Lazard is probably going to get more looks with Aaron Rodgers reporting, looking like what's his name from Con Air?
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage from Con Air. Getting more looks from Aaron Rodgers. Is this relevant or irrelevant? How do you guys see Christian Watson going down and not getting those reps in camp?
I think it's extremely relevant, just given the type of player that he is. You know, obviously he got drafted in the first round, but he was for the most part, second round. But for the most part, you know, really kind of talked about as a raw wide receiver with a lot of talent. So to miss out on valuable snaps with the starting QB, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but those are snaps that other people are getting and snaps that he's not getting, which is I think important, especially in this situation with this particular quarterback, where like building a rapport and trust are so critical and important. I mean, we talk about that a lot with like veteran quarterbacks like Brady or whatever, but Rodgers has like literally said that on multiple occasions, and we've seen that play out over the years. Seen him take, you know, average wide receivers and really turn them into superstars. You know, even, you know, the most elite wide receiver in the league right now took him 2 years to get going. So for me, it's very, very relevant, which helps out the other wide receivers, potentially someone like Allen Lazard, who I was forced to. Not forced to, but you know, I don't have a lot of shares, but I ended up, you know, he was at the bottom of my tier, and he was there, you know, available for me. And you know, with the news or you know the conference or press conference that came out, or the audio that came out with Aaron Rodgers talking about, you know, how things are going to be without his Hall of Fame wide receiver, just replacing one Hall of Famer for another. And then he mentioned Allen. Specifically, you know, he mentioned him as Allen. I thought that was very significant. I mean, you know, sometimes, you know, what players say is not really all that important, but we're not hearing it on multiple occasions now. Okay, and this is a star quarterback, and this is a quarterback that really, again, like trust is such a big thing.
Vet knows what he likes.
So given where Allen Lazard is going right now, like, and I watched every single target, not catch, but every single target he got last year. And it's not hard to like go back and look at it on YouTube. The way they use him, he doesn't need to be this elite route runner. He doesn't need to be this like elite alpha wide receiver one to succeed, especially given where he's going. They use him a lot in the slot. They use him on some end arounds occasionally. They had him like, you know, he had a carry near the goal line. Aaron Rodgers is at the goal line, is like a magician as far as getting the ball to where he wants to go. He's obviously a very, very big wide receiver. You know, they use him on drag routes where, you know, the rest of the wide receivers start kind of clearing things out. And he's a big wide receiver. So, like, he doesn't have to be this one, you know, someone who can just, like, you know, create separation and things like that to, I think, succeed in this offense, because Aaron Rodgers is just that good. So, we'll see if he ends up being the one. But, like, given, like, that he's, like, the first wide receiver being drafted from that offense, and you can get him in, like, the 8th, 9th round, you know, pretty much where I got him, I mean, to me, I'm starting to kind of come around to it.
Dio, like, I know that you're not buying it. How do you see this Christian Watson?
Well, what do you mean I'm not buying?
I don't think that you're buying that Allen Lazard is going to be the number one.
I mean, he can be the number one. I'm just not buying the talent or the skill set. I don't think he's that great of a route runner. He is a big body. He is the longest tenured guy there. But I'm one of the biggest believers in talent and the cream rise to the top. And I do think if Sammy Watkins is healthy, which he's not at the moment, he possibly is better talent-wise, you know. And I do think if Christian Watson, the young phenom, because remember, well, maybe y'all don't remember, but during the draft season, everybody was hyping up this Christian Watson guy. He had a crazy, what do you call it, combine, did crazy numbers. You know, he came from, you know, a lower tier school, the same school Trey Lance went to. And, he's an older guy. I want to say he was a senior, but still, like, ran fast, great size, did great numbers last year. And he also was hurt as well.
Yeah.
So right now, lone man standing is Lazard, which is cool. And, it might even start the season as far as Lazard being the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing about NFL seasons, it's a marathon. We talked about it a second ago as far as the Saints.
Yeah.
The way a season starts, and I always have this trouble, trying to figure out when the switch happens.
Mm-hmm. Quarters.
It
happens in quarters. I tell you, it's divide the season in quarters.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
if
maybe
you do that, you will know.
That.
Because I feel like that's when defenses have, like, enough film to, like, make the adjustments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when, like, teams start to adjust. Like, it's always quarters.
So yeah, we could start the season. Lazard's the guy. Yeah. But I think once everybody because Watkins' injury, I don't think is long term.
Yeah.
And for the way they're sounding, Watson's injury doesn't seem long term. So they might both be back and healthy by week 4. Ready to go for the rest of the season. At that point, who's to say what happens? Lazard's being taken in a great place, in my opinion. I have no problem where people are drafting him. I don't want the news of Watkins and Watson to be the thing that makes his ADP go up, though. I'm talking about Lazard. Because, again, both of those injuries don't seem long-term. So if you had Lazard at a certain value, yesterday or prior to this news, I don't think this news should make you have a dramatic change in it.
Who are you taking, Courtland Sutton or Jerry Judy? Who's going to finish?
We talked about this before.
Who's going to finish receiver 1? Apparently not. Like, multiple people have wanted us to talk about it.
Who's going to finish number 1?
Mm-hmm.
Receiver 1?
Yeah.
Judy, again, we haven't really seen him have that full season of being able to say, okay, let me, like, show y'all what I'm really about, But I think one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, and I don't remember where I saw it, so I can't reference it, but when Judy did come back from injury last year, Sutton's target share dramatically decreased. And we can say it was due to a different offense or whatever, but we can also say, players command targets, and it could be a situation where he was not commanding the targets, So that kind of scares me. And like I said, in a vacuum, if they were going the exact same spot, which they kind of were at some point during the draft season, I still probably would lean Sutton because I'm not sure, but he has the bigger body.
Now, some people just say forego Sutton and Judy and just get
Tim
Patrick.
Yeah, I hear that, but I wouldn't. And the reason why I
don't play like that.
The reason why I wouldn't, I was listening to Draft Sharks, one of their little shows.
Shout out Draft Sharks.
Yeah, shout out Draft Sharks. I don't remember the names of the hosts. I think one is Smola. But they were interviewing the Broncos beat writer. And he was talking about Tim Patrick, about how, they like to use him. But at the end of the day, Tim Patrick is not a number 1 wide receiver. And he just kind of gives you these little weeks here where it's okay, it's solid, 4 or 5 catches and 60 yards and that's it. And in these type of tournaments, you want a high ceiling type player. So with Patrick not being able to have that high of a ceiling, I'll take him late if I want to just kind of fill in depth, but he's not somebody I'm going to depend on. He's definitely not something I'm going to take instead of those other guys if I'm trying to get a piece of their Broncos offense.
So I should have added this to the news segment, but James Robinson has not been added to the PUP. Let's talk about Travis Etienne. He's been drafted relatively high. Do you guys feel like a little worried about where Travis Etienne is being drafted right now, knowing that James Robinson is not on the PUP and that he's probably going to be back sooner?
Man, I have like a handful of players that I'm just like, it's not a fade. I have some Etienne, but they're like, I'm just like not as high on as a community, but it terrifies me. And Etienne is definitely one of those players. I think for me, it just starts off with, I was not a huge Etienne fan coming out. Not just saying that he couldn't like succeed at the next level. I just felt like he played. It was basically the same CEH argument, okay? And I know they're 2 completely different players, but it's just the idea that, you have this running back who plays in this very high-powered offense with a really good college quarterback, and they have so many weapons that the defenses really can't just like zero in on them, and they're running through wide open lanes and wide open gaps. So again, it's not to say that he couldn't succeed, but I just, I was very, very questionable about his talents. And, the few times where he did, or where he didn't have as much room to run, I didn't really see what I had wanted to see in someone who was, touted as a
Did you not see the jersey number he chose?
I don't care about jerseys.
Like, come on, man.
That's another
that
thing.
in itself makes him a top 24 pick. Like, come on.
But so then you add in James Robinson. Again, I don't want to do that again with the argument where, like, okay, I'm not on James Robinson because he's coming off an Achilles. I don't feel like he is going to be the James Robinson that we've seen pre-Achilles. So I can't use that in my argument against Etienne, okay? Because I can't. That being said, to me, it comes down to the coaching staff and what they have done historically. And granted, I know different players, different personnel, etc., but they've used multiple backs, okay? And I can see them potentially using multiple backs. I still feel like they're going to bring someone in. I really do strongly believe that. But I also see, like, the idea. So to me, the idea of, like, a running back, like, leading a team in targets or really having, like, a large receiving role happens very infrequently, okay? And I think people are, using the Swift argument from last year. And again, yes, I'm going to take the victory lap. We were all over Swift, minus the injuries. I think he really showed out. But we talked about how the receiving options were poor, okay, or porous, and I think he really benefited from that, as well as it was just like a new system for everybody. It was a bad defense, and all of his targets came in the fourth quarter. So, yes, I think the Jaguars are going to be better because they can't be any worse in my mind. But I think we are really underrating their receiving options. And so I think if the offense has to go through Etienne, to me, that is a knock on the offense, and I don't think that's what Peterson wants. Yes, they do throw to the backs, but I worry about Etienne near the goal line. I worry about him, like, getting the amount of touches that we want to get for someone who's, like, being taken in the early third, sometimes late second round. And I worry about, another back coming in. I worry about this really being an RBBC. So I'm worried. So that, I don't know.
People are drafting him literally not seeing anything he's done whatsoever in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally drafting blind. And you can say the same thing from Breece Hall, but Breece Hall is going a round later. And I think in a vacuum, I would probably prefer Breece Hall than Etienne.
Yeah.
It's
tough call. Tough call.
So.
Because Breece Hall has all the skill sets.
Yeah, he has all the skill sets.
The skill sets.
Yeah.
And he's someone, like, who definitely could see the majority of the third down.
And not coming off of injury.
Yeah.
Again, just another situation where we haven't seen Breece Hall do anything in the league, but, he's being taken a lot later.
Yeah.
But again, I know, Chris, you got a share of Etienne recently. I don't hate it. It might be something that does actually reward you down the line. But where he's being taken, there are other players I just like better.
Exactly.
I took him pretty high.
Really just that simple.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I took him pretty high, but I also went robust RB in that draft.
We all on our Jeff Z's right now.
Yeah. So end up getting Zeke after.
Hey, man.
I might go into the draft and just be like, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna get Etienne here just to have him.
Yeah.
But it's not somebody I really like.
Yeah, I think I got a couple fourth round shares. So.
And speaking of, going back to James Robinson. Again, he's coming off from Achilles. I'm no way in hell I'm drafting James Robinson, just coming off that major injury.
Yeah.
But if he does have a miraculous comeback, it can do nothing but hurt Etienne, right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's the thing is, like, coming off the Achilles for maybe what the role that they want him in. Okay, like, we know that you're the best pass protector on this team. We want to, not have our quarterback getting his head knocked off behind a potentially suspect O-line.
Yeah.
Like, we want you for this role.
Yeah.
So that's a third down role,
Yeah.
That's, and maybe they have him on the field at the same time, a couple times. But for the most part, that's a third down role, Or we really like you in short yardage. We trust you around the goal line. You don't got to run a long distance. You don't got to build up speed. We just need you to be a big body. That's something. So,
and the Jaguars, people shouldn't ignore the Jaguars do have a fair amount of weapons. They might not be high-end weapons.
Exactly.
But they have weapons. They have a lot of them, too.
They've been talking a lot about Zay Jones, people.
They have Zay. They obviously have Kirk.
Yeah.
They have Ingram, who we just talked about last week. They have
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. They have Shenault. I mean,
Shenault
we can scoff at Shenault, but he's still there.
And there was a beat report again. I don't think we really even talked about how to like interpret beat reports. So take this with a grain of salt. But there were beat reports about him having some carries out of the backfield and things like that.
Yeah.
And like he was like one of the players that were using in multiple ways. So like for the Shenault truthers out there, maybe this is the year. But that takes away from
and
Etienne.
they still got Treadwell. Yeah. And they still got, they got guys, so it's not a situation where they're like, they have no other weapons, so they're just going to keep throwing the ball to Etienne.
Yeah, can y'all remember, can y'all recall who the Lions wide receivers were to start the year last year?
Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams. How long was it before he got cut?
Well, he got hurt like week 1.
And then who else?
Was it? It wasn't
Rashad
Perriman. Oh, it was. Okay,
and he got cut.
That's your boy. That's your boy.
And
we had that debate all summer last year.
We did have that debate, and it was for naught. It was.
By the way, in that Etienne draft, I ended up going Dalvin Cook in the first round, Derrick Henry I got in the second round, Etienne in the third, 8th pick.
It's not bad value currently. Like I
who's your fourth? You said you went robust RB. Who's your fourth?
Oh, Zeke. Zeke in the fourth.
See, we need a whole nother show about like robust RB. You know what? We should do a draft. We should do a draft night, a pod, and like literally go in, ideally with the idea.
Get our Jesse on.
Get our Jesse on, and just talk about the strategy and talk about like how, because I think. I wouldn't, I can't go full on Jesse. I can't endorse all of that. But I do see some idea behind, because you can't think, I think the way that people think about, the reason people do zero RB or they do hero RB, because it's like, okay, my RB2 position means nothing. But really, it's not the RB2 position. You got to think of it, okay, I have, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex, okay, and then a tight end. So really I have 7 skill positions.
Yeah.
Which skill position you punt does not matter.
Yeah.
If 6 positions score 15 points per week and that last one doesn't because that's the one that you're punting, doesn't matter if that's an RB2, doesn't matter if that's a wide receiver 2, doesn't matter if that's a tight end.
Yeah.
So the idea that, okay, I get, the idea of the RBs, being a little bit more fragile, more injury prone, et cetera. But when you're playing in a large field tournament and everybody's going zero RB or hero RB or trying to grab up these wide receivers, how do you create a unique build? Mm-hmm. Even though it's a high risk, guess what comes with high risk? High reward, Mm-hmm. So maybe this zero RB has the highest reward because we know historically, like, the RB position is the one that can really explode.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one that can really give you that 400-point week. Yeah. It's rare that we see the Cooper Kupps of last year. That was literally the greatest wide receiver season of all time. And the second was good, but it wasn't comparable to a lot of the RB numbers that we've seen over the history. So.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out a way to gather my thoughts on that whole subject for a while now because I think because I've been just kind of looking at boards lately, and remember we talked about not too long ago what draft strategy is the best strategy, and I was like, man, it's really just kind of how the board falls. Yeah. And I'm kind of doubling down on that by saying zero wide receiver works, but the problem I have with zero wide receiver at the moment is these drafts I'm looking at, it's like everybody's going zero running back. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I think when zero running back was initially a thing, when it was a viable strategy, it was a strategy where most teams were trying to, collect all these running backs, running backs that are, these fragile builds, and then you would be able to just collect the top wide receivers.
You had 3 wide receiver ones and a high-end wide receiver.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you're just taking all these super high-end wide receivers because everybody's skipping them, and then you're saying, all these running backs you are taking, somebody's going to get hurt. I'm going to take their backups later. The problem I'm seeing is if 8 teams are all doing that same strategy, number one, all 8 teams can't get the top-end wide receivers. Yeah. So you've already eliminated that. And now also you have 8 teams throughout the whole season vying for trying to pick up these waiver wire handcuffs or fill-ins.
And guess who has all those handcuffs? This guy.
Yeah. This guy. That was the next tier. I didn't want to go to that tier. We can do that in another discussion. But if everybody's all chasing these same running backs, somebody's going to be left holding the bag. Yeah. Where you don't get anybody.
And the thing about that too is go back and look at the wide receiver too. Go back and look at all the wide receivers game logs. it's such a volatile position. There are very few wide receivers who can kind of give you 15 plus points or whatever.
But it is becoming more of a passing league now. So it's still an okay strategy.
Yeah. But even if you go back to last year, like I don't know. I feel like, and that's the thing about like going like robust RB. It's like, yes, your second and third RB may be trash, but like if you hit on like 4 workhorse RBs and you're getting like 15 to 20 points every single week, like guaranteed from those positions.
It's gonna look real good,
and it's so comfortable, and I get to do so much.
Yeah. I think
the strategy. This is a strategy. Okay?
Yeah, I think
the strategy is to go elite wide receiver 1, and then just all running backs, just all running backs. You can find your wide receiver too.
Yeah. The modified Jeff Z. The only advice I'll give to people, since we had a little Twitter discussion this past weekend where people are like, I wasn't giving actual insight or whatever. The only insight, the best insight I guess I can give you at this moment from this topic we're talking about is, however the room is falling, if everybody's zigging, just zag and learn how to zag. Learn,
be comfortable with that,
and be comfortable with it. Just have a build, because here's the biggest thing I always stress to everybody: like, we don't know how this season is going to play out. We all have our biases, our assumptions. They're all predictions. They're all guesses, really. They're literally guesses. We all have this, and they're educated guesses. Yeah. So I'm not just going to knock them, but they're all at the end of the day And here, I'm getting even deeper in the rabbit hole.
Go deep.
Go deep. Even if our guesses are right, even if you guess this guy's gonna be the wide receiver 1, this guy's gonna be the running back 1, they're still gonna have down weeks.
Yep.
Injuries are still gonna occur. It's like I play a lot of DraftKings or DFS. You can pick the highest priced guys on all your positions and still lose to a team that had these lower priced guys because those guys just happen to have a good week that week. You know what I'm saying? So, it's all...
You're betting against the field. That's literally what I'm doing in my main. I'm like, what?
Right.
Like, I'm just going to bet the field. I'm going to bet that all of y'all are wrong.
Yeah, right.
And, like, it has nothing to do with, like, even my preconceived notions. I'm just betting that all y'all are wrong.
So even if I myself believe what everybody else in the draft room is thinking, if they're all going one way... Like, I don't want to go that same way, because then I'm just going to be in the middle of the pack. There's no benefit in finishing number 4.
Zero.
There's 12 teams finishing number 4. You're still finishing at the top or the top end of the league, but you're not getting anything from that. So if everybody's going one way, you have to feel comfortable saying, okay, if that way doesn't work, then if I go this other way, then my other way of going has a higher chance of actually producing a great outcome. You have to literally, again, zag when everybody's zigging. That's my bit of advice for today's podcast. Thank you very much. Come back next week, and we'll try to do this again. So,
All right. For the last topic of the night, I do want to talk about...
You know, one more?
One more.
Okay, all right.
One more. A
quick one in the morning, but okay.
Wait.
A quick one.
We didn't get on the tight ends for the Broncos.
We'll do that on the next show.
Okay.
That's quick. We might as well do it. He brought it up.
Yeah, might as well do it.
All right.
I guess I'll say it. It's the question between Alberto and if you're not familiar with the guy, Greg Dulcich. I think Greg Dulcich is going to take that job maybe not let me say take the job, but I think Greg Dulcich is going to be utilizing that offense a lot sooner than what people think. Alberto is a great talent. He's been a backup. He's produced when he's been out there, but something about this Dulcich guy specifically, and I don't know if I talked about it on the pod before, I watched the Broncos put out one of their Twitter videos about when they were drafting Dulcich. And that whole room not only so excited, they actually had traded back prior to the pick, but they were basically like crossing their fingers hoping that Dulcich still fell to them. And when he did, like the whole room just kind of was just like elated. They were just talking about how soft his hands were, and yada yada yada. Third round pick, already getting first team reps in the OTAs. This is a rookie getting OTA reps. I think he might have hurt himself or whatever, but again, we're talking about a tight end premium league. You want the guy that's going to catch the passes. And the beat writer, going back to the beat writer I was saying, talking about the Tim Patrick stuff, he actually said himself, by the end of the season, he think Dulcich is going to take that job. Shout out to Draft Sharks, because I watched that. That was good. That was good content right there. So definitely something to consider. And I put a tweet out there. I was like, if right now, if you're in Dynasty, get draft dosage yesterday, which means try to get it right now if you don't have them. And if you're in redraft, get them tomorrow, which means don't draft them right now, but have them on your radar. Yeah. Because as soon as the opportunity arises, you can probably get them real cheap. I've actually started seeing them being drafted a little bit more, so it might not be as cheap as it was before.
It's still pretty cheap, though.
Yeah, I mean, for people that drafted early in June, I'm sure he's on waiver wires. Yeah. So you're gonna be, but now I'm starting to see him taking like the 17th, 18th round. If keep hearing a beat drum from OTA practices, if he starts having highlights or something, I can see that going as high as maybe the 15th round. It's not gonna be crazy though, but just kind of just remember that. You know, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on the tight end. I know you're an Alberto guy, so I know.
I'm not an Alberto.
Oh, okay. I thought you were an Alberto guy.
No, I'm not. I'm a zero. Like I don't like any tight end in that offense. But this is what. Let me say a couple things. Okay. I'm gonna say that with a caveat. One, I just can't buy into any rookie tight end early as far as drafting.
I feel you on that.
As far as drafting, but I do like.
I got some others, by the way. Since you want to talk about rookie tight end, I can go with a few more, but I feel you on that.
But I do like the idea of having him on the radar because this is a new regime and they drafted him and they were that excited. I do put weight into that. Okay, so that is somebody like if I see him like okay, he may like only have 3 catches one game but saw like 6 targets and it was like he was the first read. And if I see that, I'm gonna pick him up because it may go 3 for 36 and people may not think much of it.
Right.
But if you see it and we kind of have this like idea, we've talked about it through. Now I feel more comfortable picking them up for $1.
Stay ready with it.
Before I have to spend a lot of money on them. But for me, you know, with this OC, with this head coach, I'm just really and with the offensive weapons that they have, I just have very little interest in drafting a tight end in this room.
Right. But look, again, I didn't say draft him. I want you. I mean, if
you
want him,
but this
draft
includes
him.
Alberto. This is why, like, I'm not an Alberto.
Okay, so you're not an Alberto.
I'm not like
what about
I
you,
own
Chris?
0 Alberto.
No.
So nobody here is on Alberto.
0 Alberto.
I know a lot of people are high on Alberto too.
Yeah, I just have because I just like these types of tight ends to me. Like if you can't be number 1 or number 2 or at the very least number 3 in targets on your team, I don't want you. I don't care about. I don't want to have to guess what weeks to play you. You know, I'd rather just like. You know, take shots super late. There's no difference between Albert O and Austin Hooper to me.
Yeah,
like, there's no difference.
There's
no difference. So, and this is one caveat that I will leave you with. Okay, because I know that obviously they're coming over from Green Bay, et cetera. Just because they're coming over does not mean they're bringing the same or similar type system. It could be a completely different system. Maybe they do want to incorporate the tight end. So this is the one. You know, that's the one little caveat where, okay, I can see it Albert O or Greg Dolchik succeeding. But in my mind, Albert O is not commanding targets over Sutton, Judy, the running backs, and even Tim Patrick.
Yeah,
I got you. Like, he's more of like, okay, like, you know, we've been throwing at these guys, let's catch the defense off guard and catch them. And then you got to, like, guess what weeks those are.
Well, just to finish this up, other tight end rookies to have on your radar, which I can actually say in the same breath as Dosage, is Daniel Bellinger for the Giants, who actually is getting first-team reps, like, today.
I still feel like they're bringing somebody in.
Yeah, I don't think so, but he's there. And then I still think K. Dotton is a threat. I know people are probably saying, well, they got Rudolph now and Bray was there, but don't sleep on K. Dotton. K. Dotton was the first pick in day 3 in the NFL draft, and the Buccaneers traded up to draft him. You know, like they traded into 301 specifically to pick a tight end. Maybe because they knew Gronk was leaving. At that time, Gronk hadn't said he was retiring, but maybe they knew it. Maybe they just wanted depth for Bray. I don't know. But I feel like with the amount of tight ends that were drafted in the draft, they didn't really have to trade up to get Otten. They could have got a guy later. So to some extent, that's telling to me. So that's just kind of how I view that.
All right, guys. I wanted to get to another topic, but I think we've kind of gone over tonight. All right, man.
Gotta get up.
Listen,
gotta get up.
That's all we got in today.
Week.
Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.
Peace.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah. Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. I'm the new era, about to snap back. You ain't fitting for it, cause you all cap like. Hold up, I shoot my shot, wait, hold up. I'm really about to run this, go up. You know it's all net when it go up.